My family turned my daughter's birthday into a celebration for my niece, so I exposed the truth they made me endure and watched them beg for forgiveness. I'm Denise, 28, a single mom to the most beautiful, sweet little girl in the world. Nora's father isn't in the picture. He decided being a dad wasn't for him when she was 3, so it's just been us against the world for the past 2 years. My family has always made comments about my poor choices and how I'm struggling as a single parent, but I've worked my ass off to give Nora everything she needs. I have a decent job as a marketing coordinator. We have our own little apartment, and Nora is thriving in kindergarten. The thing is, my sister Claire has always been the golden child. She's 32, married to her high school sweetheart Mike, and they have a 7-year-old daughter named Olivia. Don't get me wrong, I love my niece. She's a good kid, but Claire has this way of making everything about her and Olivia, and my parents eat it up. When Olivia lost her first tooth, it was a family celebration. When Nora lost hers the same week, it barely got mentioned. When Olivia made honor roll, my parents took her out for a fancy dinner. When Nora brought home a perfect attendance award, they said, "That's nice, dear," and changed the subject. But I've always tried to keep the peace for Nora's sake. She deserves to have her grandparents and aunt and uncle in her life, even if they're not perfect. I thought things were getting better recently. Mom had been asking about Nora more, and Claire seemed less competitive when we talked on the phone. So when Nora's 5th birthday was coming up, I decided to plan something special. I know money's always tight for me, but this was important. I saved up for 2 months to throw her a real party. I rented a community center, hired a clown, ordered a custom princess cake with Elsa on it. Nora's obsessed with Frozen, and bought decorations, party favors, and a bouncy house rental. I invited Nora's whole kindergarten class plus family. Nora was so excited she could barely sleep for a week before the party. She kept talking about her princess cake, and how she was going to make the biggest wish when she blew out the candles. She'd been practicing her wish-blowing technique for days, taking deep breaths and making elaborate gestures. It was the cutest thing in the world. The morning of the party, I was running around like crazy getting everything set up. Nora was in her brand new purple princess dress, the most expensive thing I bought her all year, but seeing her face light up when she put it on made every penny worth it. She looked like an actual princess, and she knew it. My family arrived right on time: Mom, Dad, Claire, Mike, and Olivia. I immediately noticed that Olivia was also wearing a princess dress, the exact same style as Nora's, but in pink. Claire had clearly gone out and bought it after I'd posted pictures of Nora's dress on Facebook the week before. But whatever, I told myself. 2 princesses at a princess party? No big deal. The party started great. The kids were having a blast in the bouncy house, the clown was doing magic tricks, and Nora was absolutely glowing. She was running around, introducing everyone to her friends, showing off her decorations, and just being the perfect little hostess. My heart was so full watching her. But then I started noticing things, little things at first. When Nora would run up to show Grandma and Grandpa something, they'd barely look at her before turning their attention to Olivia. When Nora asked Grandma to watch her do a cartwheel, Mom said she was busy talking to Claire. When Nora wanted to show Grandpa her new dance moves, he was already watching Olivia do some elaborate routine she'd apparently been practicing. I tried to shake it off. It was Nora's day. I wasn't going to let my family's usual favoritism ruin it for her. Then came present time. I had set up a special chair for Nora, a little throne I'd borrowed from a friend who does party planning. Nora climbed up onto it, practically vibrating with excitement as I started bringing over the gifts. She was so grateful for every single thing, even the smallest gifts from her classmates. "Thank you so much," she kept saying in her little voice. "This is the best birthday ever!" My parents had brought a large bag of gifts. I assumed they were all for Nora since, it was her birthday party. But when Nora reached for the bag, Claire suddenly stepped forward. "Wait," she said loudly. "Some of those are for Olivia too. We thought it would be nice to share since she's here." I felt my stomach drop, but I tried to stay calm. "Share? What? It's Nora's birthday." Mom jumped in. "Well, we didn't want Olivia to feel left out. You know how kids get when other children are getting presents and they're not?" I looked at Nora, who was still sitting in her little throne, confusion starting to creep across her face. "But it's my birthday," she said quietly. "Of course it is, sweetheart," I said quickly. "These are your presents." But Claire was already pulling things out of the bag. "This doll is for Olivia," she announced, holding up a beautiful American Girl doll that Nora had been wanting for months. I knew because I caught her looking at the catalog every time we went to the library. "And this art set is for sharing." Nora's face crumpled. "But Mommy, that's the doll I wanted. I showed it to Grandma last time." Mom's voice was sharp. "Nora, don't be greedy. Sharing is caring." I felt my blood pressure rising, but I tried to keep my voice level. "Mom, it's her birthday party. These presents should be for her." Dad scoffed. "It's not going to kill her to share. She's got plenty of other presents." But they weren't done. Claire kept pulling things out and dividing them up. The craft kit I'd seen Nora admiring. "This is perfect for Olivia. She's really into arts and crafts." The book set? "Olivia's reading level is higher, so she'll get more use out of these." The board game? "This is better for sharing anyway." Nora was trying so hard not to cry, but I could see her little chin trembling. She kept looking at me with these confused, hurt eyes, like she couldn't understand why this was happening on her special day. "It's okay, baby," I whispered to her. "You still have lots of other presents." But the damage was done. Even the gifts from my parents that were for Nora came with caveats. "Make sure you share this with Olivia when she comes over. This is nice, but don't get it dirty. Remember to thank Grandma and Grandpa properly." Then came cake time, and this is where everything went completely to hell. I had spent so much money on this cake. It was a work of art, 3 layers covered in blue and white frosting with edible glitter, and a perfect fondant Elsa on top. Nora had been talking about this cake for weeks. She'd been practicing her birthday wish, and asking me every day if it was time to blow out the candles yet. I carried the cake out, all 5 candles lit, while everyone sang happy birthday. Nora was bouncing in her seat, clapping her hands, her eyes wide with wonder. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. I set the cake down in front of her and started to hand her the knife to cut the first piece, with my help obviously. But then Claire stepped forward. "Wait," she said. "Olivia should help cut the cake. She's older, and she's better with knives." "No," I said firmly. "Nora cuts her own birthday cake." "Don't be ridiculous," Mom interjected. "Olivia is more responsible. We don't want Nora to hurt herself." Nora looked up at me with those big eyes. "Mommy, I want to cut my cake." "You will, baby," I assured her. But Claire had already lifted Olivia up and was positioning her in front of the cake. "Here, Olivia," Claire said loudly. "You can help your little cousin." "I don't need help," Nora protested, her voice getting higher. "It's my birthday. I want to cut my own cake." "Nora, stop being difficult," Dad said sternly. "Let Olivia help you." But it wasn't help. Olivia, guided by Claire, cut the first piece of cake while Nora stood there watching, tears starting to flow down her cheeks. I was frozen, watching this nightmare unfold, not quite believing what I was seeing. "Now make your wish and blow out the candles," Claire instructed Olivia. "No," Nora finally screamed. "Those are my candles. It's my birthday. I want to blow them out." She rushed toward the cake, but Olivia had already taken a deep breath. Nora got there just as Olivia blew out all 5 candles. The silence that followed was deafening. Nora stood there staring at the smoking candles, her little chest heaving with sobs. She looked like her whole world had just collapsed. "I didn't get to make my wish," she whispered. "I didn't get to blow out my candles." "Oh, for crying out loud," Mom snapped. "Make her shut up or you'll regret it." I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she said. "This is embarrassing. Control your child." Nora was full-on sobbing now. The kind of heartbroken crying that comes from a 5-year-old who doesn't understand why the adults who are supposed to love her are being so mean. Claire actually had the audacity to laugh. "Next time, don't throw parties for attention-seeking kids." I stared at her in shock. "Attention-seeking? She's 5 years old and it's her birthday party." "She's being dramatic," Dad added. "Stop being dramatic. It's just one stupid party." Just one stupid party. The party I'd spent 2 months saving for. The party Nora had been looking forward to for weeks. The party that was supposed to be her special day. I looked around at my family, my daughter's family, and saw nothing but annoyed faces. Not one person was comforting Nora. Not one person thought there was anything wrong with what had just happened. My 5-year-old daughter was sobbing because they had stolen her birthday moment, and they were acting like she was the problem. That's when something inside me snapped. Not the explosive kind of snap, but the cold, calculated kind. The kind where you suddenly see everything clearly and know exactly what you need to do. I didn't say a word. I picked up Nora, who buried her face in my shoulder, still crying. I grabbed my purse and Nora's special birthday crown from the table. I walked over to the presents, what was left of them after Claire's sharing session, and gathered them up. "Denise, where are you going?" Mom called after me. I didn't answer. I packed up Nora's things, loaded her into the car, and drove away from that community center without looking back. Nora cried the whole way home, asking me over and over why Olivia got to blow out her candles and why everyone was being mean to her on her birthday. The drive home was excruciating. Nora kept asking questions I couldn't answer without breaking down completely. "Mommy, why didn't Grandma want me to blow out my candles? Did I do something wrong? Was I bad?" Each question felt like a knife to my heart. I kept my voice steady, but inside I was screaming, "No, baby, you weren't bad. You were perfect. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and they were wrong today." "But it was my birthday," she whispered, and the broken way she said it nearly made me pull over to throw up. When we got home, I could see the neighbors' curious faces peeking through windows. We were back hours earlier than planned, and I was carrying a crying child and a bunch of presents. Mrs. Holtz from next door actually came outside. "Denise, is everything okay? How was Nora's party?" I couldn't even respond. I just shook my head and hurried inside, Nora still clinging to me like a koala. Once inside, I sat Nora down and tried to salvage something from the day. "Hey, sweetheart, wanna open your presents? The ones that are actually yours?" But Nora just shook her head and climbed onto the couch, curling up in a ball. "I don't want to. I'm too sad." I sat down next to her and pulled her into my lap. She was still wearing her beautiful purple princess dress, but now it was wrinkled and tear-stained. Her birthday crown sat crooked on her head, and her face was blotchy from crying. "I'm so sorry, baby," I whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry. Why were they mean to me, Mommy? I shared my toys with Olivia when she came over last time. I'm always nice to her, and that's when it hit me like a truck. This wasn't just about one birthday party. This was about Nora's entire life with these people. She had been trying so hard to be good, to be lovable, to earn their affection, and they had been systematically showing her that she wasn't worth it. I thought about every family gathering where Nora had been ignored, every holiday where Olivia got the special treatment, every time Nora had come home from visiting her grandparents and seemed a little dimmer, a little less confident. Last Christmas, Nora had made handmade ornaments for everyone in the family. She'd spent weeks working on them with her after-school program, so proud of her creations. When she gave them out, my parents had smiled politely and set them aside. But when Olivia gave them store-bought picture frames with her school photos, they made a huge fuss and immediately found places to display them. Nora had noticed. She'd asked me quietly later why Grandma and Grandpa didn't like her ornaments. I'd made excuses then, told her they were just busy, that they'd hang them up later, but they never did. There was the time Nora had won a medal at her school's field day. She was so excited to show it to everyone at our family barbecue. But when she ran up to show my parents, they were busy taking pictures of Olivia doing cartwheels. Nora stood there for 10 minutes, holding her medal, waiting for someone to notice. Finally, she just walked away and sat by herself on the porch steps. Or the time Nora had gotten a perfect score on her kindergarten assessment. She was reading above grade level, and had impressed her teacher so much that she'd been invited to join the advanced reading group. I was so proud. I called my parents immediately to share the news. My mom's response? "That's nice, dear. Did you hear that Olivia got selected for the gifted program?" Every single time, it was like Nora's accomplishments, her feelings, her existence, all came second to Olivia's. And I had been enabling it by continuing to expose her to this treatment, thinking that having flawed grandparents was better than having no grandparents at all. But seeing her broken like this, on what should have been the happiest day of her year, I realized I had been wrong. So wrong. "Mommy!" Nora's small voice broke through my thoughts. "Can we call Daddy and tell him about my party?" My heart shattered all over again. Nora still occasionally asked about her father, even though he'd made it clear he wanted nothing to do with her. She had this fantasy that maybe if something big enough happened, he'd want to be part of her life again. "Oh, sweetheart," I said, holding her tighter, "Daddy's not available right now. But you know what? You have me, and I love you more than all the stars in the sky. but everyone else has more people who love them, she said, so matter-of-factly that it broke me. Olivia has mommy and daddy and grandma and grandpa and Uncle Mike. I just have you. And mommy loves you enough for 100 people, I said, but even as I said it, I could see she wasn't convinced. I ordered pizza for dinner and let Nora eat it on the couch while watching Disney movies. I figured normal rules didn't apply to days when your family destroys your birthday party. She picked at her food, still too upset to eat much. Around 7, my phone started ringing. First Claire, then my parents. I sent every call to voicemail. By the time Nora's bedtime rolled around, I had 14 missed calls and twice as many text messages. I helped Nora out of her princess dress and into her favorite pajamas, the ones with the unicorns. As I was brushing her teeth, she looked at me in the mirror. Mommy, are we going to see Grandma and Grandpa and Aunt Claire again? I paused, toothbrush in hand. I don't know, baby, they hurt your feelings today, and that wasn't okay. Maybe they'll say sorry, she said hopefully. Maybe they will, I said, but I already knew they wouldn't. They never did. I held it together until I got her into the bathtub that night. Then I locked myself in my bedroom and cried harder than I had since Nora's father left. Not just for what happened that day, but for all the years of watching my family treat my daughter like she was less important, less deserving, less worthy of love and attention than her cousin. I cried for every time I'd made excuses for them, for every time I told Nora they were just busy or distracted when they ignored her, for every time I'd prioritized keeping the peace over protecting my daughter's feelings. I cried for the little girl who had spent weeks planning her birthday wish, only to watch someone else blow out her candles. I cried for the confusion and hurt in her eyes when the adults who were supposed to love her treated her like she was invisible. But most of all, I cried because I finally understood that this wasn't going to get better. This wasn't a phase or a misunderstanding. This was who they were, and Nora deserved so much better. After Nora fell asleep, I sat at my kitchen table and finally listened to the voicemails. They were exactly what I expected. Claire, Denise, you're being ridiculous. You ruined the party by making such a big deal out of nothing. Nora needs to learn that she can't always be the center of attention. Call me back. Mom, Denise Louise, I'm disappointed in you. Walking out like that was childish and embarrassing. You're teaching Nora to be a drama queen. This is exactly why she acts the way she does. Dad, you better call us back and apologize. You made a scene in front of all those people. Nora is fine. Kids are resilient. Stop being so sensitive. More of the same. More blaming me for their behavior. More dismissing Nora's feelings. More proof that they saw nothing wrong with what they'd done. I deleted every message without responding. Then I did something I'd never done before. I started documenting everything. I wrote down every detail I could remember from the party. I went through my phone and screenshotted all the text messages. I dug through my photos and found pictures of Nora's face during the present opening and cake-cutting disasters. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, creating a timeline of not just that day, but years of similar incidents. Every time they'd favored Olivia, every cruel comment, every time Nora had been made to feel less than. The pattern was undeniable. When I saw it all laid out like that, this wasn't just about one bad day. This was about a systematic pattern of emotional abuse disguised as family dynamics. I also started researching. I looked up information about emotional neglect in families, about the long-term effects of favoritism on children, about grandparents' rights and responsibilities. I read article after article about children who grew up feeling unloved by extended family and how it affected their self-esteem and relationships later in life. Every article I read made me more certain that I had to protect Nora from this. That blood relation didn't give anyone the right to treat her badly. That sometimes cutting toxic people out of your life is the healthiest thing you can do, even when those people are family. By dawn, I had a plan, not just for revenge, but for building a better life for Nora. A life where she was valued and celebrated and loved unconditionally. A life where she never had to wonder why she wasn't good enough for the people who were supposed to care about her. I looked in on Nora before I went to bed. She was sleeping peacefully, her favorite stuffed elephant tucked under her arm. She looked so small and innocent, and I made a silent promise to her that I would never again let anyone make her feel the way she felt at that party. Some people might say that what I did next was extreme, that I should have tried to work things out with my family first, that I should have prioritized forgiveness over justice. But I'd spent 5 years trying to work things out, 5 years making excuses for their behavior, 5 years hoping they'd change, 5 years watching my daughter's light dim a little more each time they chose Olivia over her. I was done hoping. I was done making excuses. I was done prioritizing their comfort over my daughter's well-being. It was time for consequences. By the next morning, the grief had crystallized into something else entirely. I had a plan. First, I called my boss and asked if I could take a personal day. Then I made a series of phone calls. I called the lawyer who had helped me with Nora's father's custody issues. I called my bank. I called a private investigator I'd found online. I called a real estate agent. I called Nora's school. See, here's what my family never knew about me. I'm really good at my job. I'm really good at research. I'm really good at planning. And I'm really good at keeping secrets when I need to. Over the past few years, while they were treating Nora and me like afterthoughts, I've been quietly building a life for us. I've been saving money, building my credit, advancing in my career. I've been keeping track of things too. Taking screenshots of social media posts, saving text messages, keeping records. Like the text messages from Claire complaining about how spoiled Nora was getting. The Facebook posts where Mom and Dad bragged about Olivia's achievements while never mentioning Nora's. The time Dad called Nora dramatic in a family group chat when she cried because she missed her daddy. But more importantly, I'd been keeping track of the financial stuff. See, my parents had set up college funds for their grandchildren when they were born. They told me they'd put money aside for Nora, just like they had for Olivia. They'd shown me the paperwork and everything. Except last year, when I'd asked for an update on Nora's fund, they'd gotten weird and evasive. Something about reorganizing their investments. I'd let it go at the time because I didn't want to cause drama. But that Monday after the party, I had the private investigator look into it. Turns out they'd emptied Nora's college fund 6 months ago and put all the money into Olivia's account. We're talking about $15,000 that they promised to my daughter, just gone. I also had him look into the inheritance situation. My grandmother had left money to be split between her grandchildren, me and Claire, with the understanding that we'd use it to help our children. I put my portion into a savings account for Nora. Claire had spent hers on a kitchen renovation. But here's the kicker. There was another part of the inheritance that was supposed to go directly to the great-grandchildren when they turned 18. The paperwork showed that this money, $25,000 for each great-grandchild, was supposed to be managed by the grandparents as trustees. Guess what? My parents had been using Nora's portion to supplement Olivia's account. Same thing. They'd been slowly moving Nora's money to Olivia for over a year. When I confronted them with this information on Tuesday, 2 days after the party, they didn't even try to deny it. Olivia has more opportunities, Mom said defensively. She's in advanced classes, she needs tutoring, she's got college potential. Nora is 5 years old, I said. How can you possibly know what her potential is? Look, we were going to pay it back, Dad said. It's not like we stole it. You literally stole it, I said. That money was left specifically for Nora. We're her grandparents, Mom said. We know what's best for both girls. That's when I played my ace card. Great, I said. Then you won't mind explaining that to the family court judge. I had already filed the paperwork that morning. I was suing them for the stolen money, plus damages, plus interest. I was also petitioning the court to remove them as trustees of Nora's inheritance and to appoint an independent fiduciary. But that wasn't even the best part. See, while I was doing all this research, I discovered something interesting. My parents had been claiming Nora as a dependent on their taxes for the past 3 years, even though she lives with me full-time and I support her completely. They'd been getting thousands of dollars in tax benefits by claiming her, while I'd been missing out on credits and deductions I was entitled to. So I reported them to the IRS for tax fraud. I also discovered that Claire had been claiming to be a single mother on her applications for Olivia's after-school programs and summer camps, even though she's married to Mike and they have a combined household income of over $100,000. She'd been getting need-based scholarships and reduced fees that were meant for families who actually needed the help. So I reported her for financial aid fraud. But wait, there's more. Remember how I mentioned I'm good at keeping records? Well, I've been documenting every instance of favoritism, every cruel comment, every way they treated Nora as less than, for years. I compiled it all into a detailed report and sent it to Child Protective Services, not because I thought Nora was in danger, but because I wanted it on record that my family had a pattern of emotional neglect and favoritism toward her. I also sent copies to the school district, because Nora would be starting first grade soon, and I wanted to make sure that if my family ever tried to pick her up, or claimed to be emergency contacts, there would be a paper trail showing they weren't trustworthy. Then came the social media blitz. I posted a detailed account of what happened at Nora's birthday party on Facebook, Instagram, and yes, Reddit. I included pictures of Nora crying, screenshots of the cruel text messages I'd received afterward, and a full breakdown of the financial abuse I discovered. I tagged everyone, their church, their employers, their neighbors, their friends. I posted it in every local community group I could find. I made sure everyone in their social circle knew exactly what kind of people they were. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Nora's kindergarten teacher reached out to check on her. Our neighbors who had seen Nora playing happily in our yard for years were horrified. My CO workers were outraged. Even people I barely knew were sharing the posts and commenting about how disgusting my family's behavior was. But the best part was watching my family's reaction. It started with angry phone calls. "How dare you air our family business on the internet? You're being vindictive." Think about how this affects Olivia. When I didn't respond to the calls, they tried showing up at my apartment. I didn't answer the door. I had installed a security camera the day before, so I had lovely footage of them pounding on my door and shouting threats to include in my court filing. Then came the desperate attempts at damage control. Claire made her social media accounts private and started posting about family drama and not believing everything you read online. My parents suddenly started posting old pictures of Nora with captions about how much they loved their precious granddaughter. Too little, too late. The court case took several months to resolve, but when you have clear documentation of financial fraud, the outcome was never really in doubt. My parents were ordered to return all of Nora's money, with interest, within 30 days. They were also ordered to pay my legal fees and were removed as trustees of her inheritance. But the legal process revealed even more disturbing information. During the discovery phase, I learned that my parents had been systematically transferring money from Nora's accounts for nearly 3 years. It wasn't just the college fund and inheritance money. They had also been intercepting birthday and Christmas checks from my grandmother's sister, Aunt Ruth, who lived across the country. Aunt Ruth had been sending Nora $50 checks for every birthday and holiday since she was born. For the first 2 years, I received them normally and deposited them into Nora's savings account. But starting when Nora was 3, the checks stopped coming. I'd always wondered why Nora never got anything from her great-aunt anymore, especially since Ruth always asked about her when she called. Turns out my parents had convinced Ruth to send the checks to their address to help me stay organized. Then they'd been depositing them into Olivia's account instead. When I called Aunt Ruth to tell her what had happened, she was absolutely furious. She'd been sending Nora money for 5 years, along with cards and letters, none of which Nora had ever received. Ruth immediately changed her will to remove my parents as trustees of any funds intended for Nora, and she started sending Nora's money directly to an account I'd set up. The tax situation was ongoing. The IRS moved slowly but thoroughly. The initial investigation confirmed that my parents had indeed been fraudulently claiming Nora as a dependent, and they were facing significant penalties and back taxes. The process would take months to fully resolve, but the evidence was clear. The investigation also revealed that they'd been claiming educational expenses for Nora that they'd never actually paid. Tutoring, extracurricular activities, even school supplies that I had purchased myself. Claire's scholarship fraud investigation uncovered an entire network of false applications she'd submitted over the years. She'd been getting reduced-price lunches, free after-school care, discounted summer camps, and even need-based grants for Olivia's dance classes by claiming to be a single mother with no income. The investigation found bank records showing that she and Mike had a combined income of over $120,000 and owned 2 cars and a 4-bedroom house. The financial consequences kept piling up. Claire had to pay back thousands in fraudulent benefits, plus penalties. Several organizations permanently banned her family from their programs. Mike's employer, a large accounting firm, quietly let him go when they learned about his involvement in the tax fraud schemes. But the social consequences were even more devastating for them. My Facebook post about Nora's birthday party had been shared over 800 times within the first week locally, and the story had caught the attention of several regional parenting groups. The community center where we'd held the original party issued a public statement supporting Nora and offering free services to other families who'd experienced similar situations. My parents' church, where they'd been active members for over 20 years, asked them to step down from all leadership positions. The Pastor Williams, actually called me personally to apologize and ask if there was anything the church could do for Nora. Several church members reached out to offer support and resources. Claire's employer, a small local law firm where she worked as a paralegal, terminated her employment after the fraud investigations became public. In a tight-knit professional community like ours, word travels fast about dishonesty. She's been struggling to find work in the field since. Dad faced pressure at his engineering firm when several clients became uncomfortable with the negative attention. While they didn't fire him outright, they made it clear that early retirement would be welcomed. He took the hint. The ripple effects extended to Olivia's activities and social life too. Parents at her school became wary of Claire and started excluding their family from playdates and social events. Olivia, who had always been popular and well-liked, suddenly found herself isolated as parents questioned whether they wanted their children around a family with such questionable values. I actually felt bad for Olivia in all this. She was just a kid, and none of this was her fault. But I also knew that protecting Nora had to be my priority, and sometimes innocent people get hurt when adults make terrible choices. But honestly, the legal stuff wasn't even the most satisfying part. The most satisfying part was what happened at Nora's makeup birthday party. See, after all the social media posts, I was contacted by dozens of people who wanted to do something special for Nora, other parents from her school, neighbors, co-workers, even strangers who had seen the story online. A local bakery offered to make Nora a new birthday cake for free. A children's entertainment company donated a clown and face painting. A bounce house rental company provided a bouncy house. Nora's classmates' parents organized a gift drive. A local event hall that specialized in children's parties heard about what happened and offered to host a makeup party for free in their beautiful princess-themed room. Local businesses donated decorations, party favors, and even a professional photographer to capture the day. But the best part was that Nora got to invite whoever she wanted. She chose her classmates, her teacher, our neighbors, and a few family friends. Not one person from my biological family was invited. The makeup party was everything the original party should have been. Nora was the center of attention in the best possible way. She got to cut her own cake, blow out her own candles, and make her own wish. She received so many gifts that we had to make multiple trips to load them into the car. But what made the day truly special wasn't the material things. It was watching Nora's confidence bloom again. Mrs. Hale, her kindergarten teacher, made a special speech about what an amazing student Nora was. The bakery owner who donated the cake presented Nora with a special Princess Baker apron and invited her to help decorate cupcakes at the shop sometime. The photographer, who volunteered his services, was actually a friend of one of the parents from Nora's class who did family photography as a side business. He spent extra time making sure Nora felt like a real princess. He set up a special photo booth with props and backgrounds, and Nora giggled and posed like she was doing a magazine shoot. Those pictures still hang in our living room, and every time Nora looks at them, she beams with pride. But the moment that really got to me was when Nora stood up in front of everyone to give a little thank you speech. She was so poised and grateful, thanking everyone for coming and for making her feel so special. Then she said something that made me tear up. I used to think I wasn't important enough for a real birthday party. But now I know I have so many people who love me. The local newspaper even did a story about it, calling it a community comes together to give little girl the birthday she deserved. The story included details about what my family had done and how the community had rallied to make things right. The article was picked up by a few regional parenting websites and blogs. The attention led to even more wonderful opportunities for Nora. A local children's theater group invited her to audition for their upcoming production of Cinderella. A dance studio offered her free lessons. The public library asked if she wanted to be part of their reading program for advanced young readers. Nora thrived with all the positive attention. She started talking about her real friends and her chosen family, the people who had shown up for her when she needed it most. She began to understand that love isn't about blood relation. It's about how people treat you and make you feel. Meanwhile, the aftermath of going viral continued to impact my biological family in ways I hadn't expected. The story had legs, and it kept growing. Parenting blogs picked it up as an example of toxic family dynamics. Psychology websites used it as a case study in favoritism and emotional abuse. It even made it onto a few of those social media accounts that share outrageous family stories. My parents tried to do some damage control online, posting positive things about Nora and claiming the whole situation was a misunderstanding. But it was too late. Screenshots of their original cruel behavior lived forever, and people in our community had long memories. Claire attempted to tell her side of the story on a local Facebook group, claiming that I had exaggerated everything and that they were the real victims. The response was swift and brutal. Dozens of people who had witnessed their behavior over the years came forward with their own stories. Nora's kindergarten teacher posted about how Nora would sometimes come to school sad after spending time with her grandparents. Our neighbors shared observations about how differently my parents treated the two girls when they visited. The pile-on was so intense that Claire had to delete her social media accounts entirely, but the damage to their reputation was permanent. Nora was so happy. She glowed for weeks afterward. She kept telling everyone about her real birthday party and how many friends she had who loved her. Meanwhile, my family was dealing with the fallout from their behavior going viral. My dad's company got so many complaints that he was asked to take early retirement. My mom was asked to step down from her volunteer position at their church. Claire lost her job when her employer saw the posts about the fraud investigation. They tried to blame me for ruining their lives, but I reminded them that I didn't make them steal from a 5-year-old or treat her badly at her own birthday party. I just made sure there were consequences for their actions. The best part? Nora doesn't miss them at all. She occasionally asks about Grandma and Grandpa. But when I explain that they needed to go away for a while because they weren't being nice to her, she just shrugs and goes back to playing. She's happier, more confident, and more secure, knowing that the people in her life actually love and value her. It's been 8 months now since the party incident, and the legal processes are finally wrapping up. The IRS investigation concluded with my parents owing substantial back taxes and penalties. The court cases have been resolved in Nora's favor. They've sent letters, cards, gifts, and even showed up at Nora's school, which resulted in a restraining order. They claim they've learned their lesson and want to make things right. But here's the thing about consequences: they're not just about punishment. They're about showing people that their actions matter, that their behavior has real effects on real people. Nora is thriving without them. She's made new friends, discovered new interests, and learned that she deserves to be treated with love and respect. She's not going to grow up thinking it's normal for family members to treat her as less important than other children. And me? I learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you are actually the ones hurting you the most. I learned that chosen family is often better than biological family. Most importantly, I learned that standing up for your child, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it means losing people you thought you needed, is always the right choice. My family destroyed Nora's 5th birthday party, but in doing so, they gave me the clarity I needed to build a better life for both of us. They thought they were teaching Nora her place in the family hierarchy, but instead they taught me that some people don't deserve a place in our lives at all. Nora's 6th birthday is coming up in a few months, and we're already planning something amazing. Just her real friends, the people who actually care about her, celebrating the incredible little girl she is. And my biological family? They can watch from the outside, knowing they threw away their relationship with an amazing child over their own petty favoritism and cruelty. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's just living well without the people who tried to drag you down. Nora is happy, healthy, and loved. She knows her worth. She knows she deserves good things. She knows that the people in her life think she's special and important. That's not revenge. That's justice. And honestly, that's all I ever wanted for her anyway.